How important was the Green Revolution this summer? Did it come close to challenging the government in a serious way? Is it still with us today?
Well, you know, I put the Green Revolution, David, into a much bigger context, because I don't think this happened out of context. And to me, the bigger context goes really back to 9/11, which is that, you know, post 9/11, we and events basically kicked the lid off a whole number of countries in that part of the world. We physically ripped the lid off Iraq. We forced elections in the West Bank. We kicked the lid off in Lebanon by extruding the Syrians through our pressure. And in Iran, the lid, you know, was already loosened by the political, you know, events there. So really, if you look at the whole region, even in Pakistan, the lid got loosened all over. And the first thing to emerge in all these theaters were the Islamists, basically. So in Iraq, we saw, you know, the Al-Qaeda jihadists, you know, both in the Sunni and Shia communities, really have all the momentum and ascendancy. In Lebanon, Hezbollah. In Gaza and the West Bank, Hamas. And Iran, you know, was what Iran was. I think what is very interesting than what happened over the last 2 years was a region-wide backlash against the Islamists. Okay, we saw it in Iraq with the Awakening, which had a Shia version as well as a Sunni version. We saw it in Lebanon with their election last summer, where Hezbollah was defeated, although that couldn't be sustained when it came to forming the cabinet. We saw it in the West Bank with the rise of Fayyadism. We've seen it in Gaza with the dramatic drop in popularity of Hamas. And we saw it in Iran with the Green Revolution. So I think this was a region, part of a much broader region-wide phenomena. And the good news is the bad guys, what I would call the bad guys, the jihadist forces are losing. The bad news is the good guys aren't winning. The good guys aren't winning because there's no space. So basically, what gets antiposed to the jihadists are these authoritarian structures, and not, you know, Fayyadism would be the good guys winning, you know, actually a progressive, moderate, Arab centrist party. But the space for those parties to grow is so narrow, okay, that what happens is we defeat the bad guys, but the good guys don't win.
So you would see no real room for a people's revolution a la the Philippines in the 80s?
Oh, not in Iran, not in any of these states, because I don't think, it's very, very unusual, and it took the energy of the Shah to have a people's revolution in an oil state. Because the regimes become so powerful by capturing the oil tap, they're able to build up massive security forces in order to quell and snuff out any popular revolution. That's exactly what happened in Iran this summer. What happened in Iran this summer, I would argue, was a coup d'etat by the oil-funded Revolutionary Guards. That basically, they saw what happened in the Lebanese election, and I believe, because I was in Beirut for that election, I believe they started printing ballots the next day, basically. And I think that what essentially happened there has been a coup d'etat by the Revolutionary Guards, who snuffed out the little space for a true democracy that Iran had. And it's just very, very hard to overthrow an oil-funded autocracy.
So realistically, our only policy option is coming to terms with the current regime?
No, I think our realistic option is to have a $3 tax on gasoline. That would be the right policy response to this. Short of that, yes, you will have to come to terms with them. And by the way, pay attention to what Iran basically said, you know, last week, which is, you know what, we're not even going to pretend anymore. We're building 10 enrichment facilities. And what did George Bush say? Bring it on. That's basically what they said. Well, there's only one way you can do that, you know, and that's if you're all your funding and resources comes from sticking a pipe in the ground and, you know, and draining it of oil, and not from tapping your people. If you have to tap your people, men and women, you have to produce a very different politics. But if you can rule and thrive by just sticking a pipe in the ground, you know, the motto of our revolution was no taxation without representation. The motto of the oil states is no representation without taxation. If I don't have to tax you, I don't have to represent you. And that's what you see play out in Iran.